Alright, how to start this video. So today I want to talk about something that a lot of people don't talk about now in this day of insta-perfect images and on YouTube, and that is failure. Bear with me, this isn't going to be a downer of a video, at least I hope it won't be, but it's literally the last day of 2018. We are looking forward to 2019, and just like a lot of you, we've been doing a lot of introspection over the past year. What's happened, what's changed us, how events have changed kind of the direction of this YouTube channel and what we're doing as Path Less Pedaled. And a lot of that change and a lot of the new direction was spurred on by a big fat failure. So if you've been a follower of the channel for a while, you know that earlier last year we got into Dirty Kanza and we started this Couch to Kanza hashtag, and it was our goal at the beginning of the year to do Dirty Kanza. Up until that point, both Laura and I have been riding bikes for over a decade. We were car free for a long time, only bike commuted. We toured continuously once for 3 years. We do all sorts of mini tours and adventures. We've explored a lot of different types of cycling, but training for an event was something that we never tried before. So we decided 2018 is gonna be the year. We're gonna try this cycling as a sport thing and kick it off big with Dirty Kanza. So I'm not gonna recount everything that happened. We have a whole video series about that. But basically, we tried our best. We got a coach, we worked on a plan, and we went to Import, Kansas. We rode Dirty Kanza, and we didn't finish. We DNF'd. We failed by only riding 109 miles. I think it's, first off, I want to say it's kind of bonkers that riding a gravel century can be considered a failure, but that's, there it is. So we didn't hit our goal of doing the whole 200-mile event. It was a pretty ambitious goal to begin with. We totally recognize that. It's one thing to kind of fail in private, and it's quite another to fail really publicly like we did on the YouTube channel. I know a lot of people really wanted to see us complete it. A lot of people had their doubts from the beginning. Whichever side of the fence that you fell on the issue, we really put it out there. We weren't trying to be a example for other people. We just wanted to show you what it would be like for two regular cyclists that love bikes but don't compete regularly, what that experience is like for them to do something like Dirty Kanza. I think it's a perspective that isn't often talked about, and a lot of people that fail, that don't complete, and there are a lot, tend not to share it because it's really effing embarrassing. So basically, we put our hearts and our reputations out there on the internet. By far and large, a lot of people were super supportive. We feel really bad about letting people down that were rooting us on, that sent us books on how to train and gave us tips and what have you. And there were just the haters. For all the positive comments, there were a couple negative ones, and you guys know how it is. You can get 1,000 positive comments on something, and that one crappy comment it ruins everything. So we got called everything from fake cyclists to having no business out there, or to suggesting that we should change sports completely. And seeing those comments, regardless of all the thousands of positive ones, still hurt, and it still preys on your psyche. Especially when for better or for worse, you did something like we did, and put your effort, your potential for failure out there for everyone to see, to just lay it bare. So after all that went down, we tried to emotionally, mentally, psychologically get over that failure, but it really tainted our perspective for the rest of the year. It put in seeds of doubt in our heads where we didn't have doubt before. I mean, were we really cyclists? I've spoken to Laura a lot about this, and one of the things that we came up with was a lot of it's expectations that people have on us, expectations that we have on ourselves, the anxiety of seeing other people that we know do the ride and complete the ride, and then all of a sudden are we like no longer worthy to ride with these friends. Lots of things going on upstairs. And there was definitely a period of a couple weeks, a couple months where I kind of didn't know what to do with the channel. I started doubting myself about whether I was a real cyclist, and ultimately it was a lot of the words of support from you guys that really kind of pulled us out of this like dark area, and also led to the development of what's now the hashtag, the supple life. I know it's completely silly, it's not the best word, it's a strange phrase, but it stuck. But basically what happened was this. Laura and I love bikes, and if we could somehow feel like not cyclists just because we didn't complete this one event, it made us really think about other people that are in a similar position where you're enthusiastic about bikes, maybe you're not into the whole training and watts per kilogram thing, and you feel like a fake cyclist too. Fake cyclists by the whole competitive cycling complex. Again, this is not a knock. None of this is a knock against Dirty Kanza. I love Jim Cummins. The event is amazing. But at the end of the day, if we're being completely honest, that kind of stuff is probably not for us. And it got us thinking about how the vocabulary of cycling is so poor in that there's not an arena, a space, a term even for someone that likes bikes but doesn't really care about watts and kilograms. If you're into racing, and there's nothing wrong with it, I'm not knocking on racers, there's a roadmap for you. There's teams you can join, there's coaches that will help you. The bike industry is creating product for you. But for everybody else, especially the novice, especially people that may be enthusiasts, that like to ride hard and fast, but not necessarily race, there's no good vocabulary or silo for that type of rider. And I think, there's tons of riders that are in that position, that are in our position, and we just feel kind of lost and anchorless. So all that to say, we had a big, letdown, a big failure in the beginning of the year that consumed the entire third of the year and has been kind of weighing heavily on our minds the rest of the year. But it did lead to some positives. So one of the bits of programming I introduced this year on the channel was Bikes and Bourbon with my co-host Toffer, who lives here in town. And it was when we were talking through that Dirty Kansa experience, we came up with the phrase "the supple life," which was in effect kind of a tongue-in-cheek attempt to encapsulate this type of cycling. So in many ways, I really credit that failure at Dirty Kansa to the birth of the supple life, basically. That experience at DK also really made me hone down who I am making these videos for. It's probably not for the advanced cyclists. It's not for someone that's super into the extremes of cycling, either extreme mountain biking or extreme road riding, but someone that falls in the middle, that is bike curious, that has interests in things which aren't generally supported by the bike industry. And so things like touring, randonneuring, front load cargo carrying on your bike, big vast middle, which I feel is underserved online. If you want to know how to race and go fast, tons of channels for you. If you want to nerd out about rando bags and front loading your bike touring bike versus rear loading, there's probably like 6. The whole DK experience also really made me hone down on kind of the language and the delivery of the videos. When I create these videos, I have kind of a ideal person in mind, and someone that's thoughtful, that's curious, doesn't respond well to the typical bro-y bike content out there. So I try my best to make content like that. I am human, and sometimes I fail. Sometimes I put up a ranty video, it gets some, people upset, gets me upset, but I try my best. Another big success, which I started last year, it's kind of fallen down the wayside, is PLP Talks. I think that was a super cool series. We talked to some amazing people. We had Lil Wilcox on there, we had Ultra Romance, Crest Bikes, our friends at Swift Industries. It was definitely like a who's who of people in contemporary bike culture. We talked about things like running a small business, issues around social media. We had Nam and Molly Sugar on. We talked about race and bike touring. These are things that no one talks about on the internet, people, and we are addressing them. So that was another big success. Granted, it never really performed well on YouTube. That's why I've kind of stopped doing it for the time being. I'm kind of thinking about just doing it purely as a podcast. But I'm a single creator. I try to put at least three videos out a week. So to do 3 videos and a podcast, it's crazy. I think another big success of the year was all the bikes I got a chance to review. I started out the year with the goal of just reviewing these 3 very specific bikes. And by the end of the year, I've reviewed 25 of them, which is bonkers. So think about it. That's 25 bikes I built, I rode, I filmed, I boxed up and shipped off, except for 2 of them. I'm still holding on to them. So that was a lot of time and work and energy just to create content for the channel. But I felt like I gave a useful perspective. You know, I wasn't reviewing these bikes purely from you know, the lens of racing, but you know, was it useful? Was it fun? Could it carry stuff? I also focused on bikes that were 650B because you know, other websites that are purely into racing aren't interested in 650B because they think it's slow. But then I counter that with, is going fast the only metric we should use to determine whether a product is good or not? And I don't think so. This year we were also able to sneak in a couple trips. You know, we did the Ochiko Overlander, created a video around that. I tried to record some of our favorite rides in the area. So a lot of content. We've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about video production. Laura and I have learned a lot about just the psychology of cycling, coming to terms with what kind of cyclists we really are as opposed to the kind of cyclists that we feel like we should be. And you know, this kind of self-awareness, this honesty is something I really prize as a personal attribute between Laura and I, but I feel like also on the channel. You know, on this channel, you're not going to see, you know, the flashiest production value. I'm not going to be crushing races or anything, but I will be pretty fucking honest. I mean, that's my value proposition to you. Okay, so looking forward to 2019, what else can you expect? Definitely gonna do a lot more gear reviews. I'm already lining up bikes. We're ideally gonna do more trips. We've already got one planned at the end of the month, at the end of January. And we're gonna go to California, Central Coast of California. We're gonna do a short video series on that. And leading up to that, I'm gonna do a whole bunch of tips on how to travel with your bike. We're actually gonna get our bikes to California 2 different ways. One with bike flights and one by flying a full-size bike. We'll see which one's better, which one's more convenient, which works for you guys. I'd actually like to do more events in 2019. Probably not 200-mile gravel events, but definitely, you know, 100 miles or less, or organized tours. I'd be curious to see how different people are running gravel tours around the country. So if there are any opportunities to do that, I'm all ears. One big goal in 2019, this is just me talking out loud and wishing, is to collaborate with either a builder or a brand and come up with the perfect supple bike at a good price point. So again, just talking in the air, but after having ridden 25 bikes and having a pretty good idea of what I want, I'd love to see someone execute it and see if it's actually a good idea. So I'll leave that on the table. That may or may not happen, but that is something, you know, talking with Laura, what would be cool to happen from all this bike testing is to actually build my platonic bike and see how it stacks up to my own expectations. On that note, I'm gonna be adding to the supple spreadsheet. I might add another page on tires as I review them because there's a ton of requests from you guys about what tires I like. One other goal, this isn't a content-based goal, but just like kind of more of an internal psychological goal, is to create a better mechanism in dealing with comments. Like I mentioned, we were generally okay with our result for Dirty Kansa. We came to peace with it, and it wasn't until really that we were reading the comments that, you know, these things started to prey on our heads. And I think part of that is you know, the human psyche, or the way that we grew up, our generation. You know, we didn't have to deal with just anonymous people, you know, shitting on your table. So at that time, and even to a degree now, you know, just having the mental mechanisms to really kind of just ignore those ultra negative comments and continue pushing on, making content for the people that actually appreciate it. And the big thing I hope you guys take away from this video is that you can fail. It's not a permanent state of being. It does happen, but because you fail at a task or an event, you yourself are not a failure. It took us a while to come around and learning from our mistakes and not completing Dirty Kansa, and, you know, redirecting kind of that negative energy into something positive, into something that is of value for other people. That's what you guys have to look forward to in 2019 if you like this content and if you want to see more of it. Again, this channel is completely viewer supported. You know, we don't get paid to review bikes or products. It's a big time suck on our part, you know, to just make all these videos. So if you appreciate it, consider supporting the channel. You can do that via the PayPal, Patreon links, or by buying some original artwork, or supple t-shirts. So I hope you guys had a good 2018, and if you didn't, I hope you guys learned from your mistakes, your failures. They're all just learning experiences, and let's all have a awesome 2019 and keep the supple side down.